We're continuing ranking the 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day. And of course, a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who would never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Imagine not being an everydayer of Locked On NFL Scouting.
Couldn't be me.
So we've done a deep dive on every roster. We've done tiering of the head coaching, offensive coaching, and defensive coaching. We've done now quarterbacks, and we saved quarterbacks. We wanted to do quarterbacks last week and say, you know what, 4th of July, we want to make sure the people are ready for this. What's next? What are we doing next?
Rosters, Kyle?
The full picture.
Right.
So now we did all the foundational work, and now we get to sit down and talk about, hey, here's how we think these teams are constructed and how they stack up. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then we get into record predictions. And to those of you who are worried about us doing the playoffpredictors.com on the podcast feed, nope. You don't have to worry about 4 shows of us working through the entire NFL schedule. That's going to be on the YouTube only live stream experience. But that will come before training camp as well. Training camp, there's some teams that have rookies reporting a week and a half at this point.
It's coming, brother.
Can't wait.
Finishing up those last vacations.
That's right. This is your recharge window. So if you're a football fan, recharge now. Because by the end of July, here in a couple weeks, it's going to be full steam ahead.
Imagine needing to recharge your football batteries.
Can't imagine.
I had no idea what that's like.
Anyway, quarterbacks today. We got to finish the quarterbacks before we transition to rosters. And yesterday we did all of the cornerstones and quality starters, 1 through 15. It's about half the league. So if you're in those top 2 tiers, you probably feel good about your chances to win most games you're going to play and not feel like you're at a disadvantage at quarterback. Things get a little dicey here. Now there's some high ceilings. There's some high floors. Is the high floor with the low ceiling enough to surpass the high ceiling with the low floor? Is there any ceiling at all? Is there any floor at all for some of these teams? It's more nuance, I think, to this group, where I think there was some subjectivity in how to order them yesterday, but there's a lot of compounding factors that I think make today's a challenging exercise.
Well, you mentioned we're starting off with bounce back candidates, and that is very obviously Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, both quarterbacks that teams traded quite a bit to acquire, gave big contracts to, and played very poorly in their first season with their respective team. But the good news is those players, both of them, have extremely large sample size of very good quarterback play during their NFL career. But, circumstances that were unique to both players didn't allow that to happen last year, but we're certainly looking for both Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson to be way better. These guys that are typically 10 spots higher on a list like this entering a season, but we can't ignore what happened last year, and they do need to bounce back to, re-establish who they are in this league.
So I think there's an interesting layer about both these guys. We have it stacked Watson at 16 and Russell Wilson at 17. Because I think Russ playing more in this case was probably a bad thing for him. The sample size of bad being bigger last year probably helps push this a little bit more where Watson played in 5 games. But what do you think about both of these guys as they continue to age and mature with their ability to avoid pressure. Because both of these guys historically invite a lot of chaos by holding on to the ball, and they take sacks at a very, very, very high rate. Russell Wilson's career sack percentage is 8.5%. It was over 10% of his dropbacks last year ended in sacks. Deshaun Watson last year, 10.5%, and he's at 9.2% for his career. What do you think about these guys bouncing back and finding there's plenty of volume here. This is always who we're going to be. You're just going to have to live with that. And if that's the case, you probably have to offensively have an even extra gear to help make up for that in some cases.
I think in the case of Deshaun Watson, not playing for as long as he did impacted that in a huge way, especially because we saw Jacoby Brissett not get sacked behind the same offensive line at even close to the same clip. But I think the time off, like almost 2 full years, it didn't help, right? Because that's a style of play that I think the comfort comes from being in that chaos regularly and knowing how to navigate and get out of it. When you don't do it for as long as Watson did, it's going to be tough. And I think that's a big staple of what's made him so dynamic. So I don't know that that's going to go away, but I think he can be better for Watson. But I think for both players, those numbers trending better is important. But I don't think either player from a trajectory standpoint is looking good for me. If you look at Watson, I mean, just my biggest concern is that I know he only played, was it 5-6 games? There was no growth even within those games. I was hoping to see him get incrementally better. And then Russ Wilson, you go from a team that like made you their guy, moving on to going somewhere and playing poorly. Like they got to change the script back in a positive way for both these guys.
Yeah. But as you said, the resume with both of them is there. I think the next player on our list doesn't necessarily have that dynamic. He's already bounced back. And that's Daniel Jones with the New York Giants. I think he's kind of at the peak of this ceiling versus floor debate. I think there is some degree of appealing ceiling still within Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
With having more playmakers around him. You saw him not beat himself in the way that he had in previous seasons, and that was a critical component for Daniel Jones. He is athletic. He's got a quality arm about him. He is someone who, with the coaching that he had last year, you really saw the inverse of both of the guys we just talked about. The question is, how much can you build upon that when I think you are a player who probably is never going to be the truck, right? The whole trucks and trailers analogy for quarterbacks. I don't know that Daniel Jones is ever going to be a truck. Now, there's a conversation about what he's getting paid and whether that's worth it or not. But I think you look at the quarterback market and what he was and betting on the upside. I think for Daniel Jones, there's a lot of things trending in the right direction and how high he can go.
This is going to feel like a hyperbolic statement, but it's really not. Daniel Jones last year delivered one of the best quarterbacking seasons the New York Giants have ever had. And I think
is statistically factual.
Right. Like it just was. Whether you like it or not, that was one of the best seasons a New York Giants quarterback has ever delivered. And I think when you consider that Daniel Jones is a physically gifted quarterback, right? He's got plenty of arm talent. He's athletic, right? In ways that people probably don't give him enough of credit for. Combined with year 2 with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka, with what you hope is a better supporting cast, and how Joe Shane's going to continue to build that supporting cast out. I think you like the trajectory here, right? It's good. But how high is that ceiling, I think, is where it gets interesting for Daniel Jones. Like, how much more is there to unlock? Can he become more dynamic, but also stay low frequency when it comes to turnovers? I'm excited to see the evolution here.
So, case in point, just to follow up on the Daniel Jones thing, 15 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. It's not great, right? But who is he throwing the ball to? His passer rating, and I know passer ratings a little antiquated, but his passer rating, quarterbacks in New York Giants franchise history with more than 400 attempts in a season with a better passer rating than Daniel Jones had last year. Are you ready for this excursion?
It's not going to be many, but I'm anxious to hear it.
Eli Manning, 2011. Eli Manning, 2009. Eli Manning, 2015. What'd I say, 400? That's it.
Incredible.
For passer rating.
I wish that Pro Football Reference allowed you to sort quarterback seasons by AV, because that would be fascinating to see what that looks like.
That would be fascinating.
Man.
Maybe that's in their deluxe stuff. We'll have to write a letter, a strongly worded letter.
We really need to know. All right, so you want to
sneak in the last bounce back?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
It's Kyler Murray. Obviously, he, with a new coaching staff there, didn't play his best football. He's always been a very skill set specific player. I think it's fascinating to think about Jonathan Gannon coming in as the head coach and what that's going to look like when a lot of people have long assumed, and us included, and I don't want to speak for you, but I feel confident in doing so. You can let me know if I'm wrong, that if Cliff Kingsbury was not going to get the best version of Kyler Murray as an NFL quarterback, who would?
We'll see if the new direction in Arizona can unlock something else. We'll see.
We'll have to wait to see him coming back off of an injury as well.
All right, we got some very toolsy quarterbacks coming up here in just a moment. But first, need to tell you about Bird Dogs. I love this brand. Their shorts, their joggers are outstanding. They make you look good. They have this stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through your thigh and your leg to give you that sculpted look. They are way better fitting than regular shorts that are made from that stiff, restricting cotton. I mean, Bird Dogs fixed that problem by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khakis, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. You can wear these things with a polo. You look good. Check them out. And they also have this anti-stink, sweat-wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL. Enter promo code LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for that free Yeti-style tumbler. Folks, get yourself some Bird Dogs. You won't want to take them off. We promise you.
All right, Joe. So we had 16 Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson 17, Daniel Jones 18, Kyler Murray 19. If you want to know what 1 through 15 is, pause, go watch yesterday's show, and then come back. And we'll pick up with 20, which is where we are starting with ceilings versus floors. I think the first two on the ceilings versus floors debate are high ceiling players to the umpteenth degree with the athleticism that they both bring to the position. Justin Fields at 20 and Kenny Pickett at 21.
I think there's reasons to be encouraged by both quarterbacks. I mean, Justin Fields, I know he has an extra year on Kenny Pickett, but what he showed as a rusher and the flashes as a passer last year were really exciting, despite not necessarily having the stuff around him figured out right year one with Luke Getsy as a coordinator, but an offensive line that needed some upgrades. I thought they were run blocking pretty good, but their pass pro was shaky. But then, I mean, the weapons just weren't there, but now they are, right? You've got DJ Moore now as a legitimate number one receiver for Justin Fields. You have a healthy, why do I always get his name wrong? Darnell Mooney. I always want to call him Emmanuel Mooney. I don't know what that's about. Darnell Mooney coming back. You got some young players. Cole Kmet's has been an emerging player. You've revamped your running back situation. And so I'm anxious to see what this looks like now that things appear to be more stable, and it's that all important year 3 for Justin Fields. So there's plenty of room for upward mobility. I remember watching Justin Fields at Ohio State and thinking he was a very good passer, right? And was accurate and could access the entire field and had a good deep ball. And, I don't think that that's been consistent so far in the NFL, but I've seen him throw the ball with good accuracy. There's more to unlock, and I'm optimistic for this year.
Yeah, but you talk about the dramatic differences in who you're throwing the football to and what Ohio State's wide receivers were, and that system, which is so
you're not supposed to be the same.
That's so option heavy. Yeah. Like they're running routes to space versus Chicago. You haven't had dynamic players on the perimeter. You haven't had threats to create large amounts of separation. That's why you see Justin Fields' sack percentage is 13%. A lot of that falls back onto him in the same way that with Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, as guys we've talked about earlier in the show, they hold the ball, they invite the chaos, they want to make a big play happen. But at the same time, you can see where the personnel has been limiting for Justin Fields, where he's had to learn how to walk the line. Yeah, make it happen, right? And he has to some degree, but I think you'll see growth as a passer, and I hope we see more efficient passing numbers as a result with less negative plays. I think we will. Now, Kenny Pickett, he's tough, man. The gifts are there. Really fun athlete playing the quarterback position. He's got that moxie and confidence about him. I think that's probably a level that sets a certain floor that you're going to like. The turnovers came in bunches early in his season last year. But he also, even as he got better, the production didn't really leap off the page at you, even as his play stabilized. So he's somebody I think you got to really project growth to in some degree.
Yeah, well, I remember one of the challenging things with Kenny Pickett as a prospect was foiling his final season versus the previous four. And all right, well, who's the real Kenny Pickett? I think the good part about what you saw last year is I think you saw some of those best attributes show up in the National Football League, and gives me a lot of confidence that he can be their answer. I thought he was really, really tough as a player. Like, there's a moxie about him. There's toughness. I thought he handled himself really well. He showed leadership. He had clutch moments. I mean, there's a lot that Kenny Pickett did showcase as a rookie. And now you want to see, him evolve, right? The offensive line should be better, right? They've made some nice additions there. Year two in the system, how does that evolve? George Pickens is a developing young player. Deontay Johnson, I think that there's more production there to unlock. We love Pat Freiermuth. I'm excited to see how Kenny Pickett evolves. He's another climber candidate for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned that offensive line. I think that will be huge to find more consistency. And Jones, man. Yeah, get some more consistency in the run game. Obviously, Najee Harris has been a big volume guy, not a big efficiency guy. You get that going a little bit more. I think you create the opportunity for more explosive plays because you're going to keep down defenses honest a little bit more.
So this next group,
dead man's bluff, right? Like that's especially with two out of these three teams. You look at the offensive lines and their team situations as a whole. One of them is better than the other two, but it's a couple of fairly long tenured starters, two long tenured starters that are high floor players, but I don't think are necessarily, especially at this stage in their respective careers, high ceiling players. Ryan Tannehill, 22. Jimmy Garoppolo, 23. And then Mac Jones is kind of the next young guy, but we have him as an adequate starter right now. And some concerns about the dynamic play of that skill group and how much ceiling that affords him as well.
Just unique situations, right? Like modest physical upside with any of these guys, but then just the situations are really, really unique. And, we were obviously preparing for this conversation, and I remember trying to sort out, okay, like who's going to have the best season? What do they have around him? And you're like, well, Jimmy's got Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow and Josh Jacobs. Tannehill's got Derrick Henry. I mean, Jones has Stevenson, definitely the best offensive line.
Definitely best.
And like a bunch of high floor, low ceiling pass catchers, if you will.
Just a bunch of possession guys that are going to have to, they're going to get their wins off play action passes and shot plays.
Like Tyquan Thornton's development as a second round pick, a top 50 pick in year two is huge for that offense. And I'm not sure that's a world I want to live in.
Not based off Bill's track record of drafting wide receivers, right?
And what I think about Tyquan Thornton.
So Tannehill has, you can't even say Tannehill is the best running game at this point. Tannehill is the best isolated player.
Yeah, he's
based off what he'd been at his peak.
Physically the best of these three as well.
Yes. but I think they comfortably have the worst offensive line.
Oh, it's
They
not close.
comfortably have the worst pass catchers. Now, we
Also
still
not
have
close.
Tannehill at 22. You know, the Raiders at least have the skill group. And their offensive line, between Parham, Illuminor being an adequate level starter for them at tackle last year, and then Colton Miller, like, you got some pieces and you have the ability to run the football with Josh Jacobs.
Right. It's not like their offensive line got worse.
I think the quarterbacks get worse as the situations get better with that three. Tennessee, Las Vegas, and New England.
Yeah. I was sitting here thinking, I was like, how much differently would I think about these other teams if Tannehill was their quarterback?
You probably like him in New England.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is this the cutoff? Do we ceilings versus floor? I think mystery bag is probably the fair cutoff for where we need to go next as we're going through this.
Yeah, well, let's get to the mystery bag. One thing that's not a mystery bag is where you should be posting your jobs if you're hiring these days. Every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, but you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's so easy, folks, to create a job post over at LinkedIn Jobs. You can do so for free. And once you do, then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that your company is hiring. And simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Mystery bag.
I feel like we need the Scooby-Doo theme song going on here, you know?
Scooby-Doo. Or the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, something like that, you know? Right? Very ominous music.
We have no idea what's going to happen with anybody further down the list. We have a quarter of the league, which is just up in the air with their starting quarterback situation. Not for not knowing who's probably going to take the vast majority of snaps, assuming they're healthy, but what that play is going to look like. Nobody is a better embodiment of that than Mr. Irrelevant, right. Brock Purdy.
Maybe if he didn't have his arm injury, we'd feel somewhat different, but...
Okay, assume Brock Purdy doesn't have an arm injury. Is he going into Fields and Pickett? Because he's...
49ers fans will probably tell you yes.
Right. I think if he didn't have the arm injury...
He's probably where he is.
Right. I think is he better than Jimmy Garoppolo, though? I think he probably is.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably extremely fair considering we saw both of them execute the same offense.
Right. So he maybe goes up a few spots.
Yeah, that's fair.
But he's still an incomplete evaluation, right?
Yeah.
Like to this point, our incomplete evaluations between yesterday's show and the quarterbacks we've discussed today are Trevor Lawrence, who we got very early on in this process, Deshaun Watson as what? The last case example of a quarterback like this missing this amount of time and coming back and starting again is Michael Vick.
Yeah.
So very few incidences of quarterbacks in the prime of their career missing that kind of time and coming back. So we have him as an incomplete evaluation for those dynamics. Justin Fields, nobody to throw the ball to. Sorry, Chase Claypool. You're mad at me.
Sorry. Nope.
And Kenny Pickett is a rookie last year. Those are Brock Purdy's our fifth incomplete evaluation quarterback. And boy, did he had a knack for making it happen.
He did.
I respect the heck out of that. I respect the heck out of some of the instances of him conceding a down, but I also thought there was a little bit of wild stallion to that, where there were some high-risk plays that were fortuitous in the way that you didn't get burned by some of the decision-making that is going to have to improve. And you expect that it would, right? He got meaningful reps last year. But that, for me, with Brock Purdy is where the storyline goes. There's some really likable intangible qualities. He's quick. He's nimble. I don't think he has a great arm, but he has a sense of timing, and he has a sense of making something happen under pressure.
Yeah. The Seattle game, right? The Seattle playoff game. That's the one I'm just like, okay, all right, maybe you're good. Maybe you're really going to be a good player, you know?
I remember the text chain that day.
Yeah, no, let's not get it. Yeah, but for real, though, I that was a journey.
Yeah.
That was a journey.
So he's going to keep proving people wrong. Our next mystery bag is not Mr. Irrelevant. It's almost as far away from Mr. Irrelevant as you can get, statistically speaking. He was drafted over 210 picks earlier with Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers after sitting for 3 seasons aside of a few spot starts. He comes in at number 26 on this list. And really it's because we don't know. I don't know what you're going to be. I'm excited to see it, but I have no clue. And the variance of outcomes is massive.
You know, it's funny as I had a conversation with Peter Bukowski, the outstanding host of Locked On Packers. And we both kind of agreed that if you really want to see the best of Jordan Love, you got to go back and watch him in the preseason against the Bills, where like we both kind of said, wow, like there were some really good moments in that game. I know it's preseason against a team in Buffalo, but they were playing their starters for a good part of that game as well, where you got to see him. So I remember watching that and thinking to myself, man, I think Jordan Love might kind of be good. And I mean, he was a first-round pick. We both thought he was worth being a first-round pick. The story to this point certainly didn't unfold how anybody anticipated, but I thought they were smart to give him a pretty modest like extension to really give themselves a runway to see. And now it's about making it happen. I get a little bit concerned by just the complete lack of experience from any pass catcher, right? That's definitely a huge concern. And obviously we'd love for the Green Bay Packers offensive line to stay healthy for once. Those variables are going to be important, but I'm really curious to see Jordan Love in the NFC, in a division that I think is very wide open for a team that has a lot of talent, especially on defense. And, you know, this is his moment, right? Like what we have so much debate over like playing guys right away or sitting and waiting. I mean, we're going to find out some stuff right here. We're going to point to this for a long time, how this all sorts itself out.
Yeah. Because the only other example of that right now is Patrick Mahomes.
Right. It looks
memory.
like the greatest thing you can do. Yeah. Just sit him on Alex Smith, give him Andy Reid, give him Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. And that's the formula.
I know. And you'll be fine.
That's all.
It's almost like the situation is just as, if not more important, right? How do you want to describe what's happening next on the list?
I think we just be honest and tell people exactly what we did and why we did it.
Correct. But it's Baker Mayfield's our next quarterback.
Yeah.
He's not an incomplete evaluation. We generally feel like we know what Baker Mayfield is, in spite of being a number 1 overall pick for the Cleveland Browns.
It's about to play for his 4th team.
Right. And I think that speaks volumes.
Right.
Now, Carolina making the move and bringing him in, and then he went to the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know how much to penalize him for the.
Hey, Baker Mayfield in his first start is always really good, man.
Right. That's true. We know enough of what Baker Mayfield is that we have him classified as quality depth. There's some quarterbacks on this list who remain incomplete evaluations, and then there's a trio of quarterbacks on this list who we have not acknowledged yet, who were drafted very early in their respective NFL draft this past year. But with Baker, you have playing experience. You have, I think he's got a above average arm.
Yeah.
He's got the short-term memory that can be favorable at times. And going into a situation where he's going to have dudes to throw the football to, which he did not have between Los Angeles and Carolina. I think really this is the best situation he's been in since that playoff season in Cleveland, because I think the year after that, things with Odell soured, and you saw Jarvis Landry really regress as a player. So I think this is a healthy situation. Now, those Tampa receivers are slowing down too, but I think Baker's the right guy to let the ball hang out there and not really care and let those guys make some plays.
I think Baker made the best decision for himself for sure. That's going to give him this opportunity, right? The veteran pass catchers. I'm concerned about the O-line, but throw the ball to Godwin and Evans and Kate Otten and Russell
Let the chips
Gage.
fall where they may.
Rashad White can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield and play some good defense, and don't do dumb stuff with the football. You got a chance. You got a chance to win some games, man.
Our next three are all rookies, and we have them listed in the order that they got drafted because they have no reps, 0. It's impossible right now. You can prognosticate, you can have a gut feeling. But between Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson, those are our next 3 quarterbacks in order because of the order that they got drafted. They are in a tier by themselves. And then to finish, Joe, we have 2 incomplete evaluation, not day 1 picks with virtually 0 sample size who are starting for their respective teams who don't have necessarily the pedigree or the physical gifts of the quarterbacks who went in the first round in this year's draft. In Desmond Ridder at 31 and Sam Howell at 32.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with putting them below the 3 rookies. I mean, Ridder was a 3, Howell was a 5. I mean, I think it says a lot about them that they're getting this chance to be starters. Despite that, going into the season and really 2 situations in Atlanta and Washington where you feel like success is pretty necessary this year for those regimes to kind of continue. So I think that says a lot, but I don't think that they're close in terms of upside. And of course, I mean, the evidence is in a year where Kenny Pickett was the only first round quarterback, these guys go in the 3rd and 5th round, right?
Right.
Young, Stroud, Richardson, they're top 4 picks. It's not the same. So it's all fluid. It can change as we get more information. But right now I feel comfortable putting Young, Stroud, and Richardson ahead of Ridder and Howell.
Do you have our sheet open?
We do.
Can you go to the offensive summaries tab for me?
Okay.
I have a question for you to close as we get ready to shut down here. The first quarterback that we just ranked to get pulled is who?
Oh man. Why do I have to go to the offensive summaries? What was the significance there?
Because you could see the backup quarterbacks.
Oh, okay. The first one to get pulled, I mean,
who is the starting quarterback who is most likely or in the most untenable situation in which they could get pulled?
I think it's got to be Washington. I think it's got to be Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett and him being the backup there. And I mean, Jacoby Brissett was respectable. I mean, that was like a top 10 offense when he was running it till they handed it over to Deshaun Watson. There's a toughness that I really like about Jacoby Brissett. And they've got good receivers in Washington. And I mean, questions about the offensive line. I mean, Jacoby Brissett has dealt with a lot in his career as mostly a backup with navigating those situations where you have Sam Howell coming from a Phil Longo offense with footwork issues. Like, to me, the leash should be the shortest on Sam Howell. And of course, the other side of the coin being Jacoby Brissett makes that even more attractive.
I think the other one is Ridder and Heineke. Right? In Atlanta, and probably a little bit more of a win now situation. And you have a quality depth player in Heineke, who Washington, ironically enough, of all the teams, was where he just came from. And they tried to get rid of this dude for like 3 straight years.
Yeah.
And he just kept finding his way into the lineup and playing a lot of meaningful snaps. So I think those are the 2 quarterback situations, ironically, where you have veteran quality depth behind a second-year inexperienced player with both teams having a certain level of pressure to win. And I think that says a lot about why these 2 guys are probably where they are on this list as well, with next to 0 playing experience to their name for us to judge them on. So that is quarterbacks ranked 1 through 32.
I'm glad we did this, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how much different it looks next year when we do the same thing.
I'll have to dig through the archives and see if I can find what we had last year.
But this is only you and I. This is our influence. There's been other people in the past that influence things. And there's great people, but this is only you and I.
This is our say.
Yeah. Completely subjective.
Yeah. We are not meant to be objective right now. This is opinion season. Right. We had a few people upset with, which was it? The coaching?
Yeah, McCarthy.
Mike
McCarthy. You guys are supposed to be objective. No, dude. This is completely just us sharing our opinions, putting these coaches in tiers.
That's right. We hope you come back for more opinions and objective conversations when it comes time for it. But I would say probably our next couple weeks is going to be a little bit more of the subjective type talk, because we're going to talk about power rankings and rosters and how they're constructed based on our eye and our assessment and our opinion of the players. So that's what you have to look forward to here on this show. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We are Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We appreciate you for making us a part of your day, and shout out to our everydayers who do keep it locked in with us here on Locked On. We're out of here. Talk to y'all again tomorrow.